We live, we live, we live. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Pep Talk UK. Pro Beez joined once more with Benji's boxing. How you, Benji?
Hello all, I'm back at the mic on Pep Talk UK with Pro Beez. I'm very happy. Everything's good in the world, in my little corner of the world. I even put up a video for the first time in 10 months it was on my own YouTube channel yesterday. So again, as I said in that video, huge shout out. Thank you, Pro Beez, for getting my love of boxing back. These live chats that we've been doing, I've had huge amounts of fun so far doing them. And it seems to be all, as you were saying just before we came on, it seems to be all the rage and all the craze right now to do these live chats. So hopefully we get loads of people in, get loads of input from the viewers. Everyone can subscribe, like, make sure they hit the notification bell. And I think we've got some juicy things to talk about today, Pro.
Yeah. You know, we're going to shout out your YouTube channel before we even get started. Subscribe to Benji's Boxing on YouTube. We'll say it again at the end, but Benji's good people. So get subscribing. You're going to be doing a lot more collaborations in the future. 2021. Let's go, baby. Let's get it. Guys, logging in. Drop that, smash that like button. Drop a comment. Amir Khan, Kell, Brook, Eddie Hearn expressed interest in making this fight. He said it's still a big fight, not as big as it was, but still it is a big fight. So look, as always, Benji, we're going to talk about ourselves before, you know, opening it out to the floor. Would you still watch this?
Yeah, I would, and I think I think a lot of people would. And it's a case of, you know, there's something about this that's kind of a little bit Roy Jones, Mike Tyson for me. It's one of these fights where boxing fans kind of know that these two, they're past their best now. Personally, you know, let's not sort of mince the words here. That I don't think either of these guys are in their prime. They've both been stopped, knocked out, sustained quite serious injuries, so they're nowhere near as fresh as they were. They're both in their 30s, mid-30s now as well. Amir Khan, yeah,
I think 33, and I think Kell Brook is 34 going into 35.
Yeah, so and at sort of 140, 147, that's seen as sort of quite an old professional. So let's not make any bones about it. Boxing fans know that these two are not in their primes anymore. It's past its. I shouldn't say past its sell-by date, but I think people understand what I mean by that. But if you put those two names out and advertise, there's a lot of non-boxing fans that know those names that would still be interested in buying it. So from a commercial point of view, I think there's definitely still something there. Now, that's one side of the equation is, will this sell? Will people watch it? Yeah, I think they do. I don't think it's as tasty as it would have been, you know, a number of years ago, especially if they'd have managed to somehow get a title on the line for it. I mean, you could have maybe been looking at sort of a stadium type show. Obviously, in the current climate, we don't even really have arena shows. You know, ticket sales doesn't come into the equation if this fight was to happen within the next 6 months, say. But all that aside, if ticket sales were in the equation, I would expect this fight to happen in sort of a sizable arena, maybe a Manchester arena, that sort of thing, Wembley arena, or I don't know what they call it now. The Millennium Dome is what's the name of that place now?
In Cardiff?
No, you know what was the Millennium
Dome? O2.
The O2, that's it. Yeah, the O2. Yeah, I mean, if they could sell that out, if obviously CV19 was an issue, if they could hold it in that venue and sell that out, that would be good going. I would have said that would be very good going. From a pay-per-view standpoint, I mean, me personally, I'm reluctant to pay for any pay-per-view these days. But again, I think a lot of people would pay pay-per-view for this. So that's my opinions on sort of the commercial aspect of it. what happens when these two get in the ring? I have to say, I wouldn't be expecting too much of a great fight, really. I think it would ultimately be a bit of a disappointment as a concept. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, my general thoughts on it, I think it still can happen. I think it's a decent swan song for both fighters. I think decent money can be made out of it. But what we actually get in terms of a contest, I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. I'd be interested to see what other people think of that.
All right. Okay. What we'll do is we'll engage the viewers, and then we'll get back to our conversation, and we'll just keep rotating. All right. So welcome the guys that have come in. Smash that like button if you're in as well. Subscribe if you ain't subscribed. Okay. Charlique, the leader, salute. Good to be on Lady Chan's channel with you the other day. All right. TJ, Vincent, Kell, Brook wins for me. All right. Okay. So look. Benji, TJ says Kell Brook wins for me. Now, look, just putting it out there, in their prime to date, a lot of people have felt the same. Are you one of those?
Look, the way I see it is Amir Khan should win this fight. If this fight happens and Amir Khan doesn't win, it should be huge egg on his face and he should be massively embarrassed, and I'll tell you why. Kell Brook, over his last few fights, okay, let's have a look. Terence Crawford stopped him, knocked him out. Okay, he beat Mark DeLuca in a kind of keep busy type fight.
154, yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, where am I at?
They beat Mark DeLuca, yeah.
Yeah, there's also fights, Michael Zafara, Sergey Rabchenko.
It's a rough fight, yeah.
Yeah. Before that, we've got the Errol Spence fight, which did one eye. Before that, Gennady Golovkin, which did the other eye. So, and also with one of these interim fights, was it the Sergey Rabchenko one?
Rabchenko.
Was that the first 154 that he did other than Golovkin when he decided to move up a weight class? Or was that Kevin? No. Yeah, I think it was the Rabchenko fight, or the Zarafa fight, where I just sort of thought Kell shouldn't be struggling with this guy in any kind of way, and there were alarm bells ringing for me with that. So look, what I'm trying to get at in a really clumsy roundabout way is that with two severe injuries, with stoppages from Golovkin, Spence and Crawford, struggling with other boxers who I don't see as being massively high level, I think that Kell Brook is very much a faded fighter from what he has been in the past, from what he was pre-Golovkin. You know, the Kell Brook that beat Sean Porter, that's not the Kell Brook we have now. There is no better time to face Kell Brook. I think unfortunately, I don't mean to disrespect him in any way at all. I don't think there is a better time to fight Kell Brook than right now, because I think all the signs that maybe his career is at its very end are there. And if Amir Khan wanted to wait for those signs of Kell Brook getting a bit old, him having severe injuries and all this sort of thing, this is no better time. He's picked the perfect time to have this fight and to win it. And I think that's what it always came down to, because you look at Amir Khan's career, any time that he could have faced Kell Brook, he always pulled something out of the bag. He would rather lose and get knocked out to Canelo Alvarez than fight Kell Brook. People say, oh, well, he took the bigger fight. He took the career-defining fight. I disagree with that. He was never going to win that fight. He was never going to beat Alvarez. Okay, we can give him credit. We can give him props for having the cojones to take that fight. Sure. But I think it would have done more for him to actually be in a competitive fight that he could have won. Terence Crawford, there was loads of conversation about Kell Brook Amir Khan happening before the Terence Crawford fight. He took the Terence Crawford fight. He was never going to win that fight. Never. But he would rather take the Terence Crawford fight and get beaten by the pound for pound, one of the pound for pound best, because then he can still say, well, I'm a top 10 welterweight. He can still say, I'm the best welterweight in Britain because I've only ever been beaten by the best. As soon as he gets beaten by Kell Brook, he's not even the best welterweight in the UK. If you see what I'm saying. So, and the other thing with the Terence Crawford fight, people go on about Kell Brook quitting against Errol Spence, right? There was this whole thing about Kell Brook's a quitter. If you want to know what quitting looks like, watch Terence Crawford versus Amir Khan. Amir Khan took a low blow, and it was questionable how low that was. The first opportunity that Amir Khan got to get out of that Crawford fight, he took. He took it. There was no debate. There was no career-threatening injury there. He took one low. We've seen loads of boxers. Look at Ricky Hatton versus Costa Tszyu. Look at the low blow that Ricky Hatton hit Costa Tszyu with, and Costa Tszyu carried on. That's because that's what a champion does. Amir Khan took the Terence Crawford fight for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons was to stay away from Kell Brook and have a very legitimate reason in the eyes of his fans for not fighting Kell Brook. But he didn't go out on his shield against Terence Crawford, not the way that Kell Brook did. The first opportunity that Amir Khan got to get out of the ring with Crawford, because Crawford was on the brink of really embarrassing him because he started moving up through the gears. He took that. So, look, I think Amir Khan should win a fight between Kell Brook and himself, because, as I say, there's no bet. If he was waiting to get Kell Brook at the right time, when he's going to struggle to make the weight, when he's got injury issues, when he's seen as damaged goods or faded, now is the time. So my prediction is Amir Khan's got to win this fight. If he doesn't, egg on his face. I'm sure I've upset a number of people with these comments right now.
I was like, wow, Benji's just woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, man. He's in full smoke mode.
Caffeine's kicking in.
All right, let's engage some of the viewers, man. All right, Matthew De Souza, I would not pay for it. Both absolutely washed fighters. Now, look, okay, so Eddie Hearn's expressed an interest in making this fight. All right, it would be extremely hard sell to put on pay-per-view, but given the pandemic,
yeah,
all right, given the pandemic, right, given the fact that there's not really a lot going on at the moment, given the fact that there still is a bit of needle between the two fighters. Now, let's face it, if Amir Khan comes online, starts talking shit about Kell Brook responds, and it keeps going back and forth on social media and on YouTube videos, this could actually draw some interest. But pay-per-view, I don't know for me, but what do you think? Do you think people still buy it with those factors in mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's like you say with CV19, it's got to be pay-per-view. It's got to be pay-per-view in a way. And also the amount of money that both fighters are going to want for this. I mean, it's not, we know that Eddie Hearn loves to squeeze the lemon, but let's face it, Amir Khan loves to squeeze the lemon too. Amir Khan loves the money. And that's nothing disrespectful about that. That's not a criticism at all. If you're going to go into the ring and get knocked out, put your health on the line, get as much money as you can out of it. That's not a criticism in the slightest. So Amir Khan is going to want top dollar because, as I said before, there's a good chance this will be the last fight for both of them. So they are going to want to go out on a big payday. So it will be pay-per-view. I'm going to come on here and go, Pro Beez, this is pay-per-view. I don't want to pay for this. And, I'm going to do that. And I'm sure a lot of other boxing channels and people are going to do that. But it's not necessarily about us. There are people that are going to pay pay-per-view in the current climate to have a night in with a pizza and a beer and watch some boxing. People pay that in the current climate because, let's face it,
they can't go out and do that. Yeah.
I mean, I remember talking about, I can't remember what the fight was, but I was bitching about pay-per-view on my own channel a year or so ago. And someone came up into the live chat and they just said, look, Benj, I'm going to pay the pay-per-view. I'm going to get a pizza in. I'm going to get a beer in. It's going to cost me sort of 40, 50 quid, whatever, because he was having some mates around. He said, that's a great night in. It's not. So, you know, I think we have to take these things into some kind of context. A lot of people aren't paying the pay-per-view necessarily for a specific boxing match. A lot of people pay pay-per-view just for a night in with some friends and family, or in this case,
it's not a night out anymore. It's a night in, and that is very much different. And it's a lot cheaper than a night out when you go to the boxing, and you could really spend about 50 quid upwards. Yeah, quite a few drinks, the food, the snacks. All right, that amounts to much more than 20 odd quid on pay-per-view. Let's put it that way. But then you could also say, sorry, Benji, you might order 2 pizza meals, you might order a load of drinks, right? Times whatever member of people that you have in your house, and that might amount to the same amount. So people could argue with you against that and say, well, it's still expensive either way, you know?
Well, difficult. I mean, it is what you make of it. I mean, my brother plays golf with this kid, right? Who he's been to something like every Anthony Joshua contest that happened at Wembley Stadium, and he doesn't remember any of it because basically it was a day out. Yeah, let's not forget that a lot of boxing shows. Oops, excuse me. A lot of boxing shows. They start at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's when you go to a boxing show, you can be on it all day, and then afterwards, when the boxing show is finished, you might head on to a nightclub or any other type of club, and you know it really does stack up. And I miss that. I have to say, I really do miss that that side of things. That those were the highlights of my weekend.
Yeah. Those nights, those memories.
But, exactly. And the thing is, if you can get even just a little piece of that, even just a little piece by paying a pay-per-view, I understand. And that person in the live chat that I was speaking to that year or so ago, that opened my eyes a little bit. I was like, right, I get it a little bit more now. It's not necessarily about paying for the fight or a good fight or anything like that. For a lot of people, it really is about that night in, bro.
Yeah. Of course. All right, TJ Vincent, during these times, what else is there to do but pay for it? So let's get on. All right, see, that's the first one. See, look, everyone's dismissing this fight, right? Okay, the 2 fighters are not in the prime of their careers. They're going towards the back end of their careers. And it's not what it was 5 years ago, right? Maybe 8 years ago. However, I'm going to be honest, right? If that fight was made tomorrow, right? I might have a cheeky flicker at it and watch this fight because, to be honest, it's a pandemic. Nothing else is going on, right? And I'm a boxing fan. And I know these two really don't like each other, right? So what better than a straightener on TV, right? For us to see.
Absolutely.
I'd watch it. It's not the same. I'd watch it.
Who knows what we're going to get on the undercard? What happens if Eggington Cheeseman 2 gets put on the undercard? I'd buy that. God, look, you know, what if you get something like that on the undercard? What if you get Conor Benn and Josh Kelly on the undercard or something like that? You know, I mean that might be a bit wishful thinking, but the point I'm saying is you never know if a good card gets put together, then you could be in for a great night.
Yeah, with an Eddie Hearn promotion, apples and pears, it's a great fight. Listen,
apples and pears
that is going to convince me, right? Eddie Hearn, if you're watching, that's going to convince me. Apples and pears, Amir Khan, Kell, Brook, what more could you want?
I think you've been doing too many interviews with Eddie Hearn, to be honest.
All right. Born a Blue TV. All right. I think that could be Chelsea or that could be Birmingham City. I'm not too sure, but I think it's Chelsea. Big yourself up. I think Chris Congo beats both now, to be honest. All right. Shout out Chris Congo, my guy from years back. Right. Shout out Chris Congo. He hasn't had the opportunities so far, but he's managed by Dillian White now. And we're going to see him out there on a lot more bigger shows in the future. And potentially he might be out there in March. But if he beats Amir Khan and Kell Brook right now, listen, he's a fresh, hungry young fighter. So there's a possibility. But again, just let the young man progress with his career without any high expectations. He's just kind of starting out his career, you know, in the limelight. And he had a good win over Luther Clay as well. So shout out Chris Congo, my guy.
I'm in danger of saying something really stupid right now. Chris Congo, was here a mixed martial artist?
No.
At one point. No, I'm thinking of someone else. Sorry.
No.
I thought you was going to say something stupid. Don't worry about it.
Hey. All right. Chalik the leader. UK bragging rights. Put Junior Witter versus Ricky Hatton on the card. The fight that never got made, man. Do you know what? This could be entitled The Fights That Never Got Made.
Yeah.
Look, are we like 10% and all? Like 10%? Like, do we get 10% commission like for putting this card together? Like Benji, Pro Beez, Chalik leader, 10%. We're gonna put together a card. And Junior Witter versus Ricky Hatton.
Yeah. How that fight never got made. You look back at it and you just felt at one stage they were kind of on a collision course, especially, you know, pre Hatton Sue. And it looked like it was absolutely going to happen. And it just never materialized. And obviously there's a big disconnect there because Ricky Hatton was maybe the most popular boxer in the country at the time. The only exception that I could maybe think of would possibly be Joe Calzaghe. But Hatton, you know, was selling out Manchester Arena, just fighting literally anyone. It didn't matter who they put in the ring with it. Yep. It would just sell out. And I was lucky enough to go and see Ricky Hatton box live. And I actually went down to the pub that his dad owned after the fight. He was meant to box a guy. I think it was a Kelson Pinto. He was meant to box, and Pinto never got on the plane. And they put a late replacement, a Dutch fella. I can't remember his name now. And it wasn't even particularly a competitive fight. Shamba Mitchell was on the undercard fighting someone Stewart, who Ricky later fought. But it was a good night, man. And it for me to say that I actually got to see Ricky Hatton box live in Manchester was fantastic. And then seeing him in the pub the next day, the day after a fight, he was all. I remember he come out the front of the pub and someone introduced me to him, and he had a Bailey's in his hand, and I think he had a Guinness in the other hand, and he was this sort of thing, and. Yeah, it was fantastic, you know, to back in the day to see that. But as I say, at the time, it was all about Junior Witter. And although saying that, because Shamba Mitchell was on the undercard, Ricky was actually talking about a possible fight with Shamba Mitchell and how, like, backstage and at the weigh-in, he'd been eyeing up Shamba and measuring him up and sort of looking at looking at that sort of thing. But Ricky was really looking above. He was looking at the world titles and the Americans and Mexicans and this sort of thing. Whereas Junior Witter was just calling out Ricky Hatton. He wasn't putting big pressure by sort of going after bigger names. He'd had a stinker of a fight with Zab Judah that had really put the American market off. And it was Timothy Bradley came along and Timothy Bradley stopped him, I think. And that just, once that had happened, because Timothy Bradley at the time wasn't the name that he went on to be. And it, just like that, the fight was extinguished. It was no longer beneficial. But I just felt at the time that Junior Witter was a hell of a talent. He had power, really awkward, unorthodox way of boxing. And if he could have just had a fight with sort of a bigger named American, if he could have beaten someone a bit more high profile, that would have really forced that Ricky Hatton fight. But unfortunately, he was going to the negotiation table with not much leverage because Ricky Hatton had this huge fan base. You know, I mean, and it was just that stumbling block. But you look back at that what that contest was building and the fact that it never happened, it's just kind of crazy in a way looking back at the whole thing. But funnily enough, just to extend this story a little bit longer, the music venue that me and my brother used to run and own, we used to have amateur boxing nights on. And one night, Junior Witter came down as sort of like a guest appearance thing, and he brought with him the titles that he'd won. And he was a very sort of humble, very nice guy to talk to about things, and very, very different to the person that you saw on TV calling out Ricky Hatton. He was because back then he was very sort of brash, you know, aggressive type person. But when you actually speak to him face to face, he was very quiet, polite sort of guy. But there you go. You see, you bring up any Ricky Hatton history, I'll go off on one.
Hey man. All right, guys. Let us know what you think about Amir Khan potentially fighting Kell Brook 2021. Would you watch? Who would win in their prime? Smash that like button. Put in the comments. Let us know, and we'll try and respond to you guys. All right, Manuel. Good afternoon. All right. Mathwell de Souza, once again, I think Khan would have a much better chance if it happened now. Yeah. He would have got KO'd if they both fought in their prime. Right. Okay. So there's two ways to look at this, right? Okay. Amir Khan, quick fighter, quick across the ring, and very good combinations. Like when he let his hands go, it was just like I won't say the name of a weapon, but it was constant. You know what I mean? And Kell Brook always had timing, but he also had power. But power don't leave you, as we know, and the timing probably don't leave you as much either. But you could argue and say, well, the speed of Amir Khan might have been reduced, but I don't know. These are questions that potentially might make for I wouldn't say a great fight. I'll say a fight for people to actually tune in and find out what the answers are to these questions.
Well,
what do you reckon, Benji?
I think you've just raised a fantastic talking point, mate. I really do. Let's see what people think. What's going to leave a boxer first? Does speed and accuracy, those skills, leave a boxer first? Or what about power and timing? I mean, the old adage is that a boxer always keeps that power. The dynamite doesn't fade necessarily. If that's the case, and it's the speed and accuracy that's going to fade, that does actually put the ball into Kell Brook's court. It's a very, very interesting thing to see whose skills have diminished and why. And let's face it, Amir Khan's gone his whole career with people questioning his chin, and I think there's some validity in that. If it's a case of all Kell Brook has to do is land one, it surely makes for an interesting fight. Whenever you have that situation where one punch can end a fight, that's going to bring in viewers. That brings in interest.
All right. Okay. So, guys, if you just joined, we're talking about Amir Khan potentially fighting Kell Brook. It might happen this year. It finally might happen. Who knows? But you guys want to talk about who would win or who would win in their prime. Smash that like button. All right. Han Azam, where would you rank Khan as a British fighter? Would you say he was one of the best the UK has produced? All right. Interesting, Benji.
I'd say, yeah, potentially. I mean, when you look at the whole thing, him as an amateur turning pro, yeah, he was a hell of a talent that got produced. I just don't actually think that he necessarily went about his career and fulfilled his career in a way that necessarily has shown that. I mean, there's a number of things that I've been disappointed with Amir Khan about. I think he spent so much time chasing Mayweather and he spent a hell of a lot of time chasing Pacquiao. And it's a shame that he didn't get a crack at Mayweather. It's a shame that he didn't get a crack at Pacquiao, because I think he deserved it. But I think he could have done a bit more to kind of force those fights. A good example of this, right? He was saying to Kell Brook, me and you are going to fight if you can beat Errol Spence. You've got this mandatory IBF title defense. You get through that, and then we're going to do the contest. And I think Amir Khan played a little bit dumb there, because he was saying, "Oh, you'll get through Spence. It won't be a problem." We knew how good Errol Spence was. We knew that there was a good chance that Kell Brook wasn't going to win that fight, because it was a 50-50 fight, and it played out in the ring as a very close fight. But notice how Amir Khan, after that fight happened, he kind of said, "Oh, well, the fight between me and Kell Brook's off now because there's no title on the line." Why wasn't Amir Khan calling out Errol Spence after that fight? If it was about the title, if it was about the belt, okay, Kell Brook's not got the belt anymore. Why aren't you calling out Errol Spence? He didn't have an interest in that fight at all. Look at Danny Garcia, top level fighter at 140 and 147. He beat Amir Khan. Amir Khan, in my opinion, people can disagree with me, I don't think he's really pushed for a rematch on that fight. He's never particularly looked like wanting to avenge that. And the fact is, Danny Garcia's had a couple of losses over his last few fights and things. People are questioning, does he belong in the top 5 or 10 of the division? I think he does, just by the way. But again, why isn't Amir Khan looking for that, to avenge that loss? I think the way that Amir Khan's managed his career financially has been very clever in a lot of cases. I think he's had some great opportunities, like with Canelo. But I think there's certain things that he's done and the way he's gone about pursuing fights or not pursuing fights that's sort of left me a bit frustrated. But if we're talking about talent, raw talent, go from amateur to pro, that hand speed, the way he boxes is absolutely fantastic. His biggest mistake has been when he's not boxed, when he's tried to have a scrap, have a fight, which was the whole saga of him being in Freddie Roach's gym. He sort of tried to be a bit more like a Pacquiao and turn himself more into a fighter. That wasn't him. He's more, in my opinion, Amir Khan is a pure boxer. And whenever he strayed from that, he ended up getting knocked out or having a lot of difficulty with opponents. But as the question is where you rank him as a British fighter, I think talent-wise, he's seriously up there. All
right, we heard it from the man himself, Benji Boxing in the building. Subscribe to Benji's YouTube channel. Remember that as well.
What about you though, Pro? What do you think? How do you rank him as a British fighter?
Amir Khan in his prime, and again for his amateur career, you definitely have to say he's well, of our generation, we can say definitely he's one of the best. Definitely he's up there. I wouldn't say he's the best, but I'll say he's up there. And I just think some people might say, for all his potential, did he really go on and achieve what he should have? You can say that about a lot of fighters. Again, boxing has a number of factors that you have to take into consideration, right? Sometimes the fights don't get made for different reasons, and it's not because of the fighters. Let's put it that way, right? And we're seeing it more and more and more play out. So he can look back on his career and say, you know what, I did the business. I made a lot of money, and I did the business. So, all right, guys, smash that like button, subscribe. All right. Manuel Tingen, Khan versus Brook is nothing more than a last paycheck for both. All right. Now, this has been coming up a lot as this fight kind of resurfaced. Is it that clear, Benji? Is it? Well, look, let's look at it in reality, right? They're both at the back ends of their career. They haven't announced their retirement yet. On paper, it would look that way, but could we call it that?
I think personally, if these two were to box and then both retire, I think it could be the best thing that both does, because I think the worst thing that could happen for either of these guys would then to be being used as a stepping stone for boxing. Someone mentioned Chris Congo before. He said Chris Congo would beat both of them now. And you said straight away afterwards, he's a young boxer, start of his career, you know, moving along. Does Khan and Brook want to run the risk of being a stepping stone, a name on the record of someone like Chris Congo? Because that's what that. Let's face it, that happens to a lot of boxers.
Gatekeepers. Yeah.
They become gatekeepers, and then they be. I mean, look at Amir Khan. Amir Khan's got Barrera's name on his record, right? Mm-hmm. That Barrera was not the Barrera of old, you know. Yeah. It just wasn't. But still, Amir Khan was at the top. Well, I've got Marco Antonio Barrera's name on my record. I've beaten, stopped him, you know. Do Khan and Brook want to be in the same position? I think career-wise, financially and career-wise, and all these sort of things, just from someone sat in an armchair right now, I think that Khan and Brook ending their careers on that fight with a big, juicy paycheck, not many boxers get that at all. I think it's a hell of a way to end the career.
But before we move on, how sickening would it be? I mean, these two do not like each other, right? Arch enemies. You lose to your arch enemy, right, in your last fight. That's a sickener. Surely, Benji. Well,
maybe there has to be two fights. Maybe there has to be two fights.
Would you guys watch two fights? Trilogy?
Well, look at it, man.
Yeah.
Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank never got over it, did they? Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank, there was needle there for you. There was even that thing. Did you ever watch that thing where they got Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank and they trained them like gladiators? Did you ever see this? It was back in about 2001, possibly. It's hilarious. You can still watch it on YouTube. It's hilarious. But they brought these two boxers, these rivals in, and they still absolutely hated each other. And they nearly came to blows because Eubank was winding him up. If you've never seen this, it's hilarious. It's like just type into YouTube something like Eubank and Ben Gladiator Training School, and and they're fighting with swords and shields at the end. And Nigel Benn won, and he finally had even admitted to the camera that he finally had some sort of closure to that whole side. And maybe we'll see Khan and Brook, you know, fight it out on Countdown in 10 years' time or something like that.
Some might say, look, why don't they just have a game of darts? Just, you know, to end the
Absolutely.
All right, guys, smash that like button. Leave your comments. Amir Khan has called out Kell Brook, says he finally wants to put Kell Brook in his place. We've heard nothing from Kell Brook yet, but would you pay to watch this fight? And who would win if these two stepped in the ring? All right. Anwar Hussein, Amir Khan has been trolling Brook for years. First, he says Brook needs to win a world title. Brook beats Porter, and then Khan says Brook is disrespectful, so won't give him a payday. All right. The facts is the facts, right? That did happen. He did say, go and beat Porter, win a world title first, which Kell Brook did in a close fight with Sean Porter. That fight was so close that night. Kell Brook did really, really well. It was a good performance. It was a very close fight also. But he done the business, all right? And then Amir Khan didn't fight him right after, right? So, okay. Has Amir Khan moved the goalposts? Well, did he move the goalposts too many times for Kell Brook? And did Kell Brook also, in the second part of the question, was there too much energy put into that Khan fight? Because you saw he went up, was it 2 weights to fight Golovkin, right? And there were some repercussions to that. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, Absolutely. I feel that Amir Khan has moved the goalpost constantly. There's always been some barrier. There's always been some hurdle to get over. There's always been, the Errol Spence thing was a great example of that. There was either a hurdle or something for Brook to get over, or Amir Khan found what he could say was a bigger or harder fight in Canelo or Crawford. That he could move away from that. It's like I said before, Amir Khan, if he loses to Canelo at 154, well, he's still a top boy at 147. He's still the best 147 in the UK. If he loses to Terence Crawford, he's lost to a pound for pound. He hasn't, he could still say, I'm top 5, top 10 in the world. I've just lost to a pound for pound guy. I'm definitely still the best in the UK. As soon as he loses to Kell Brook, all that evaporates. The smoke and mirrors are gone. They're washed out. And I think that is one of the key reasons why he has gone down other avenues with his career rather than the Kell Brook one. We also have to ask the question, like, what I was saying with Junior Witter, with chasing the Ricky Hatton fight. Is there anything Kell Brook could have done to put more pressure and force that Khan fight? I have to say maybe not. Probably not. Because you look at, he got himself an IBF title. He boxed some of the best in the division. He boxed Gennady Golovkin, for crying out loud. And yeah, that could definitely be a mistake. Because ultimately that could have taken a hell of a lot more out of him. Yeah.
But he did well in the fight. He did well up until that point.
Yeah. But again, you see, this kind of plays into Amir Khan's hands again a little bit, because him sort of taking the Golovkin fight, there was always the chance that he wasn't going to be the same boxer after getting in with Golovkin, and that potentially plays into Amir Khan's hands further down the road.
Interesting. Look, I would watch, as I keep saying in this live stream, is if these two fought, it's not the fight it was 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever, but, we'll still tune in. Guys, let us know what you think. Amir Khan says that he wants to put Kell Brook in his place. Finally, once and for all, a straightener on pay-per-view, potentially. All right. Smash that like button. Okay, so just kind of continue on to what Anwar was saying. Brook starts being respectful, and then Khan says he will only fight Brook if they have rehydration clause. All right. So was that another hurdle or obstacle for Brook to overcome?
This is just all nonsense. Yeah, and again, this was really disappointing when all this weight limits and rehydration clauses and everything like that was coming along. A load of Amir Khan fans had the absolute nerve, the absolute neck, the absolute gall to say, "Oh well, there needs to be a rehydration clause because then it makes it an even fight." No, it makes it a handicap fight. As soon as you're limiting what a boxer can put into their body, especially in terms of hydration and water between weigh-in and fight, you're already trying to pull that boxer's level back. You're trying to put the brakes on that sports car a little bit. You're trying to weigh that person down. For a completely fair fight, both weigh in, both hit the weight, and then between weigh in and fight night, they get to drink and eat whatever they want, as long as it's not obviously peds and roids and Mexican beef and this sort of thing. But you can't do that, and it's also silly, because if Khan beats Kell Brook, but Kell Brook was only allowed to put a certain amount of water into his body at post weigh-in, well, you've you haven't beaten the best Kell Brook, have you? Us fans, what I want to see, okay, we're not going to get that necessarily with this fight, but I want to see the best Kell Brook versus the best Amir Khan, or the best they can be on fight night. And as soon as you start saying to a boxer, oh, you can't weigh in more than this on fight night, or you can't take in this much hydration, whatever, however you want to put it, however you want to describe it, it's not right. And when that whole thing was being talked about, that my blood did boil on that a little bit, because, as I say, it is like setting up terms for a handicap match. I don't like catch weights either for the same reason. As soon as you start bringing in catch weights and rehydration causes, and it's usually the boxer that has to come down that is the one that's being handicapped.
Is it all part of being an A side though? Because the A side usually dictates these terms for the challenger.
Yeah, and it's an abuse of it. I get that. I get the whole thing, because we've talked about this before. But you're venturing into a territory where it becomes kind of obvious that you're abusing that A side status to a point where you're just stacking the deck against your opponent in an unsportsmanlike manner. I mean, it's bad enough Canelo now deciding to give people four weeks notice if they want to fight him. That's bad enough. But, anything that's a very obvious tilting of the playing field, I can't respect that.
All right, Benji, are you in a bad mood today?
No.
You're fully on the smoke today, yeah.
Well, look, we messaged each other yesterday about doing this, and I said to you, as always, I said, okay, what's the subject? What are we going to talk about? Just so I can, if I need to look anything up or have a think about things. And you said, oh, the subject's going to be Khan and Brook. And my reply, I said to you straight away, I said, oh, well, this is going to be fun. And it has been.
It is because you didn't get the fight that you wanted all those years back. There's a slight bit of resentment that's still there. But look, many feel the same. A lot of people wanted this fight earlier, but we might have it this year. And to be honest, with this pandemic, I'll probably watch anything at the moment. So yeah. I'll watch this fight, definitely, 100%. And just because of the needle between the two, I know they don't like each other. So that's what would get me zoned into this fight. Guys, let us know what you think. Amir Khan potentially fighting Kell Brook 2021. Eddie Hearn says he'd like to make that fight, and it's still a big fight. What do you reckon? All right, Carlitos, 3-time champ. What up, champ? Hate this fight. This is very strong coming out. I can feel the emotion behind it. Hate this fight. All right. These two messed around their whole career and now want a final payday. Don't give it to them. They should be fed to the young ones, Ben, Congo, Kelly, etc. All right. Okay, so we just said resentment, right? Obviously, you have a bit of resentment. You wanted the fight earlier. A lot of other people, including Carlito, wanted this fight earlier. Is there a chance that people could just go on strike with this fight and say, look, you never got it together earlier? I'm sure Kell Brook would say, look, I was ready. From when I beat Porter and I won that world title, I was ready. I was ready to have it. Is there a chance that people might just say, you know what, we ain't watching this fight and we're not giving you this payday? Is there a big chance of that happening?
Yeah, it's the complete opposite. The fact that people are so passionate about this fight, the fact that people like Carlitos is gonna go onto social media. People are going to be on Twitter. They're going to be on YouTube. In the comment sections, going to go, I hate this fight. But look, all these comments, all they're going to do is publicize the fight. The fact that people have got so many passionate views. I mean, you saying to me, obviously today I'm like a bit more fired up than normal. The fact that the emotions that this fight actually invokes, whether they're positive emotions or negative ones, it is completely the reason why someone like Eddie Hearn is going to be absolutely rubbing his hands together on this.
Just imagine this though, Benji. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
We're on a live stream right now. Just imagine Kell Brook and Amir Khan on a live stream right now with Eddie Hearn in the middle of them. Would you watch? I'll ask all the viewers, would you watch that?
Well, Pro, you've got to make it happen on your platform.
Yeah. We'll try our hardest. Guys, smash those likes and then we'll try and we'll try. Yeah.
Now, if you're the debate moderator, I would watch that all day long. I'd love to see on the screen you in the top left-hand corner, Eddie Hearn in the top right, Kell Brook, Amir Khan down in the bottom corners. I think it belongs on the Pep Talk channel personally.
Guys,
but, yeah,
subscribe, make it happen. Subscribe. All right, sorry, go on, Benji. Yeah.
No, I mean this is it, and I'm sure Eddie will look at doing these sort of things. I mean, obviously it was, ringside back in the day. We all remember George Groves and Carl Froch sat next to each other, or David Haye and Tyson Fury, and Groves and De Gale comes to mind. People having sat next to each other on ringside, having a beef, and that's what it needs. But I actually, all it takes is for that to happen, and you're lighting the touch paper. Because as I said before, there's so many emotions and so many, Khan has got a huge and very loyal, very passionate following. They cannot stand me. And there's a lot of people that like Kell Brook as well. I'm not selling him shit. I mean, that you look at Brook versus Spence at Sheffield Stadium, the football stadium, wasn't it? That was, it was a hell of an event. So Kell Brook's got a lot of fans himself. So it's kind of, I mean, Eddie Hearn's weighing all these things up, and the more you think about it, the more it's kind of a no-brainer. Okay, both of them pass the best. There's a good chance that the fight might actually stink when the two people get in the ring. But as an event, as what people are going to be talking about and debating and arguing about online, all the ingredients are there.
Yeah, you mentioned Froch versus Groves, right? You remember that rematch in front of how many? Carl Froch keeps reminding everyone.
60,000?
No, 80,000. 80,000.
Oh,
yeah, 80,000. Look, the needle between those two meant that Carl Froch absolutely wanted to pummel George Groves. He wanted to really give him one, all right? And he managed to do that in front of 80,000. So Kell Brook would want to absolutely, to Amir Khan, all right? And I could just imagine Amir Khan winding Kell Brook up in a build up to this fight. I'm telling you, the views would be on smash. And people say that they don't want this fight and say that it's old news, would actually watch. Guys, would you watch Amir Khan versus Kell Brook? Old rivalries renewed.
The other thing, though, as well, Pro, is, and I don't want to go into too much detail on this, but when you look at the controversies outside of the ring that Amir Khan and Kell Brook to some extent have had, there is a lot of ammunition for both men to get at each other with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, do you know what? It's mad. Do you know what? There is. But who would go there? That's the question. But
I think they both would.
I would say that. Look, I met these two guys. Amir Khan, very respectful. A couple of times I met him, very nice guy, like very respectful. I've got to say that, right? Of all the boxers, that guy was very respectful. You know what I mean? Kell Brook, all right. I get on Kell Brook, all right. Anytime I see him, good guy, all right. So, guys, entertain us, man. Entertain us. Maybe get it on summer of this year, 2021, and I definitely would watch. Benji, you'd watch also. All right. Okay. Lady Chan in the building. Subscribe to Lady Chan's building. Sorry, subscribe to Lady Chan's YouTube channel. Sorry. All right. I was initially like, I don't want this fight. But now, to be honest, with the COVID, I need some boxing to kick off. And I'm glad and happy to see Kell Brook fight after his last loss. All right. You see, this, this is music to Eddie Hearn's ears right now. Some people are still interested in this fight. And the pandemic, potentially, I think it's the pandemic, to be honest, that's pushing people more towards saying, okay, put on the TV, put on the box, I'll watch this fight.
Yeah.
So if this wasn't a pandemic and loads of big fights are getting made in packed stadiums, then I think this would probably go under the radar. But
well, you know, I've mentioned my brother a number of times in these live chats because my brother is kind of the token casual boxing fan, and I just know for a fact, and he only lives next door. We're all in our little bubble together. But I know for a fact if this fight gets announced, he will be texting me very excited. Brook and Khan, it's being made. It's whose house are we watching at? He'll be dead excited, and we will. As I say, me and my wife live in this house. My brother and his wife live next door. We're all in our little bubble. I know what will happen is the four of us will have an evening in watching it. The wives will be bored and talking amongst themselves, and me and my brother will be talking crap about
Benji. Matt Hancock could be watching, mate.
Matt Hancock.
And Boris, yeah.
Well, look, there's a castle up the road. Where I live, there's a local castle. If I get caught out, I'm just testing my eyesight. I'll be fine.
All right. Craig Connell, it's clear Khan ducked Brook and never wanted to fight. He was never interested in fighting Brook for the IBF. Has Khan won a world title, or will he now? What? Okay, Benji. All right, there's 2 points to this question, right? Isn't it? Yeah. So, okay, is it clear? I think you kind of alluded to earlier that Amir Khan ducked Kell Brook when they were meant to fight years back. Is it simple as just ducking, or were there other priorities, which we haven't talked about? He fought Canelo, the biggest name in boxing, right? You can't really turn that down. Opportunities there. Terence Crawford, the pound for pound #1 or 2 at the time, right? Big opportunity. He wanted Manny Pacquiao. He wanted Floyd, the big guns, right? Is that ducking, or is it just prioritizing?
Well, I think it's very convenient. I think it's very convenient to have those things come up, and what we will never know is what would have happened if the Canelo fight wasn't there, if the Crawford fight wasn't there. And you have to say, well, if Canelo wasn't a factor, would Khan have fought Brook, or would, if the Canelo fight wasn't there, there's a good chance Khan might have said, no, I'm holding out for Pacquiao. It's the bigger fight. So that if you're really harsh, if you're a really harsh Khan skeptic, you're probably going to go down the line of thinking, well, if Crawford wasn't there, if Canelo wasn't there, Khan probably would have found someone else to box, or because having the fan base that Amir Khan has got, he's going to be the A side in most situations. So therefore, he can make fights happen. It's he's got all that leverage. So as Khan skeptics are going to say, no, he'd have found someone else to box. He'd have gone down a different avenue. Khan fans are probably going to say something like, in those two situations, he took the harder fight, the bigger fight, the legacy-defining fight. I kind of disagree with that a little bit, because legacy-defining fights are generally ones you win, not ones that you get knocked out in, or get out of because you took a low blow. You know, the legacy fights are sort of blood and guts fights where you put everything on the line that are going to go down in history. And I don't think that the Canelo fight, or certainly not the Crawford fight, are either of those. So the other point that Craig has made here is he was never interested in fighting Brook for the IBF. Again, if it was about the IBF title, why didn't Amir Khan call out Errol Spence as soon as that fight finished? That I think Khan was on the punditry team during that night, and I think he made sort of a flippant comment of, "Oh well, yeah, maybe I'll fight Spence or so," but he did not call out Spence. He did not say, "Errol Spence, I'm coming for you." And that sort of says to me it wasn't about the IBF title. So.
Yeah. Is that happening right now with Terence Crawford to Errol Spence? Because Terence Crawford is chasing Errol Spence, right? About a big fight, and Errol Spence is like, look, these are the terms. Unless you accept these terms, it ain't happening. You know, I can sell out arenas. You know, I've got the bigger brand name. I've got the bigger audience than yourself.
Mm.
It's funny how it works, right? It's another scenario. Yeah.
It doesn't help. Was it Bob Arum was sort of said he'd washed his hands of Terence Crawford?
Yeah.
After that, because I mean that plays in Errol Spence's hands on dictating, because he's basically saying, look, even Bob Arum's saying that you don't make any money, you don't put bums on seats and this sort of thing. I don't think that Spence is ducking Crawford, to be honest. I don't think it's necessarily the same situation, and I don't think the long-standing rivalry. I think there is a rival. Don't get me wrong. There's a rivalry between Spence and Crawford. They both want to prove that they're pound for pound, but I think the circumstances are slightly different to the rivalry between Khan and Brook.
All right, guys, smash that like button, subscribe. All right, Kurt Campbell. All right, losing to Brook is probably one of Khan's worst nightmares. All right, okay. All right. Do you think it is one of his worst nightmares? Yeah. Because we did say earlier in this conversation that if either one lost to each other, that is such a sour taste, you know, and a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
That factor is there if they fight this year. Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it still is. I think Kurt's hit the nail on the head. I agree with him. I think it is a nightmare. But look, I think it's a nightmare for Kell Brook as well. If Kell Brook, because Kell Brook's, I feel, has done more chasing to get Amir Khan. And I do think there is evidence that he has been a bit fobbed off by Amir Khan. So if Kell Brook was to finally get the fight and lose, I think that's going to stick in his craw for a hell of a long time. No one wants to lose this fight. This is monstrous. This is it's like whoever loses this fight is going to be twisted. Their gut is going to be twisted up for many years to come. You know, you don't get over that sort of thing. But I think for Amir Khan, over the last 5-10 years or however long this beef's been going on, he has always sort of been marketed as being a top guy in the division, a guy that could cause problems for Mayweather, cause problems for Pacquiao, and all this sort of thing. If Kell Brook was to beat him and knock him out, all that gets shattered. And I think, you know, boxers do care about legacy. They do care about the history books and this sort of thing. And, you know, if this fight happened 5 or 6 years ago and Khan had lost, I think his standing in the whole of the 147-pound division, his standing in world boxing would really be questioned about where he is. All
right, right, guys, we've got 20 minutes left. All right, get those questions in. All right, AG, bro, this fight is long lost all interest. So much so I'm going to leave. Wow. Wow. All right. Now you see, this is what we're like. Okay, but look, this is what we're talking about. Okay, so we've got some people saying, well, these two hate each other. There's a lot of animosity between the two. Go on then. All right. And then AG's just like, look, I have absolutely no interest. Just like that. Okay, catch you next stream. All right. Okay, guys, get your questions in.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Plot twist. He'll watch the fight.
And look, and the funny thing is, if that even comes up on Twitter, right? Someone posted a knockout on Twitter, right? Or I don't know, some magical moment in the fight. People are gonna scroll over it, you know. I'd love to see the impressions count to the view count. You know what I'm saying? People will definitely check for that fight. You know, hand on heart, they will.
Well, again, you know, if Amir Khan was to stop Kell Brook, you know, if Kell Brook is stopped in a similar fashion to how he was stopped against Errol Spence, Amir Khan fans are going to be retweeting that over and over and over and over. And on the flip side of that, if Amir Khan gets laid out in a similar fashion to how Canelo laid him out, Kell Brook fans and Amir Khan haters are going to be retweeting that over and over and over and over. You know, people that say they're not interested, I completely get that. And in this moment in time, they might not be. But come fight night, come the day after fight night, they will be interested.
With Eddie Hearn promoting that, I think you guys would be interested. But again, each to their own. I suppose the viewing figures after the fight will actually confirm what we're saying. But again, let this fight get made first, because it's been a long time in the waiting since it's actually even been made. So we're talking about it because Amir Khan says that he wants to put Kell Brook in his place once and for all. All right, guys, let us know what you think of that. Would you pay for the fight if it was on pay-per-view? Let us know what you think also as well. All right, Boxing Gist. Khan will stop Brook now. Okay. How do you look at this, Benji, right? So years back, a lot of people, what I saw in the forums would say, okay, Kell Brook hits too hard. You know, he might knock out Amir Khan, right? But we talked about the speed element and the combinations, and Amir Khan, Kell Brook's got a bit of wear and tear, right? He's got that, you know, those major injuries, right, that he's sustained in the Golovkin fight and the Spence fight, right? Amir Khan's been knocked down or knocked out a few times, right? So who's the fresher of the fight? I mean, could Khan actually stop Brook on the basis of him being a lot fresher than Kell Brook, or?
Yeah, I think Amir Khan is the fresher fighter. I mean, okay, he's been knocked out. And you look at the Canelo fight, he got knocked out. But outside of the knockout, he wasn't getting punished at any point in that fight. He wasn't, you know, down in the trenches with his face smashed in. And as far as I know, there was no long-lasting broken bones or damage from that fight. That's as far as I know, because to be honest, I think fighters getting injured in the ring, like with broken bones and internal damage, is a lot more common than people think. It just doesn't get advertised or talked about very much. I think the amount of broken ribs that happen in rings, along with broken hands and this sort of thing. So I'm a bit reluctant to say that. But as far as I know, there was no lasting career-threatening damage on Amir Khan following that Canelo knockout. With Crawford, it was getting to a stage where Khan was being outclassed and Crawford still looked like he had some gears to go through. But at the same time, Amir Khan wasn't at a stage where he was, you know, taking an absolute smashing, you know. And this is why I say he got out when he could. I think that fight could have gone that way. And Amir Khan saw an opportunity through the low blow that he could get out the ring and kind of save face in a way. So I do think that Amir Khan is that little bit fresher, whereas Kell Brook, he took a lot of punishment in that Golovkin fight. He took a lot of punishment in the Spence fight. The eye sockets, of course, is going to be an issue there. And I think that wear and tear has shown in subsequent fights for Kell Brook. And I think this is why Amir Khan really fancies this now. He really does. So I do think that look what I said at the very top of this live chat. I think Amir Khan, I'm leaning towards him winning this one. Because I do think the playing field is in his favour, just from the general wear and tear on both fighters.
Wow. All right, that's Benji's prediction. Do you guys agree? Let us know. All right, Mr. KWX Ben 1966. Snoop Dogg said it best. Granddad's fighting at the barbecue. All right.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. It was two uncles fighting at the buffet. I'm sure it was it was definitely two uncles. Whether it was the barbecue or the buffet, we can argue about that.
I think it was two uncles, but we get the point. The point is, yeah. They're not that old. They're not that old. No. Come on. All right. This is a harsh one. Hold on. This is very harsh. I saw it. Oh, what did I see here? All right. It's a coward. That's harsh. Do you know the guys he's fought? He can't be a coward. Definitely.
No professional boxer that gets in the boxing ring and as a scrap and that is a coward. None of these pros are cowards.
It's the business. It's the business.
It's the business. Now, I don't think Amir Khan is necessarily scared of Kell Brook. I think that he's very cautious about the repercussions that losing to Kell Brook would have on his career and his standing in world boxing. I think that's a better way of putting it. And again, whoever loses is going to be is going to be twisted up for a long, long time. If there is any fear in Khan or Brook, it's a fear of losing. It's not a fear of getting knocked out or punched or broken ribbed or anything like that. These are very, very hard men. The only fear that could be there is the fear of that feeling of losing to your biggest rival domestically and on the world stage.
Wow. That feeling of not being able to go to Sainsbury's, on a Sunday, morning and face the locals. I'm only kidding. All right, Kell Brook, Amir Khan, two good guys. Good guys, man. And I have to thank them for the time that they've given to Pep Talk in the past, definitely. So I like the fight. Benji would like to see the fight. Let us know what you think. All right, IQ Boxing Academy. I think this is Xavier Miller. Big up, Xavier Miller, trainer of Dillian White in the building. All right, still an interesting fight. Pac versus Mayweather was late. Let's go. That fight was extremely late. And also, I just got to tell the truth, mate. I fell asleep probably around 8. And I had to rewatch the fight again a few times. It wasn't much of a spectacle, was it?
Well, the funny thing about that fight is at the time, so I won't waffle on. I'll do my best here, Beez, not to waffle on too much. At the time, as I say, I was owning and running a live music venue. It was a Saturday night, and I was DJing that night because basically when you're running a live music venue these days, you have to do as many jobs as you can yourself to keep the staff costs down and everything like that. So I was actually the DJ on the Saturday night. So I went into work, had a proper good night at the decks, somewhere between 800 and 1,000 people in. Everyone's partying it up and everything. Switched the music off at about 2 or 3 o'clock. Threw the keys at someone else to lock up. got in the car, went home, switched on the TV. By the time I got home, it was around 4, half 4 in the morning or whatever it was. Mayweather and Pac walk into the ring. I thought, I've timed this well. This is fantastic. And I set up a camera, I did a whole live video. I might make that live again at some point on the channel. But to be honest, that fight actually went a similar way to I predicted it, because I'd been having debates and arguments with people for years. And I said, you are going to be amazed at how easy Floyd Mayweather beats Pacquiao. It's going to be a completely one-sided fight, and it probably won't be that much of an interesting fight. And damn, I was right. To be honest, for that hot, I think I gave Pacquiao round 4 and maybe 1 or 2 others, but I thought Mayweather just
shut out.
Yeah, because what we were meant to see was the best defense on the planet versus the best offense on the planet. Mayweather bought that best defense. Mayweather did what he always does. It turned out to be just another Mayweather contest. Pacquiao, in my opinion, for whatever reason, I know Pac fans have a lot of what they see as information about Pacquiao regarding that fight. But as a spectacle to watch, I'm not surprised you fell asleep. It was not the most, apart from round 4, where Pacquiao had a bit of a go at it. It really wasn't, it wasn't an edgy as seat, fight. I mean, Mosley versus Mayweather round 2, when I believe it was round 2, left hook and Floyd nearly went down. There was no moment. There was no moment like that in Mayweather Pacquiao. And so after all those years of build up, what happened in the ring didn't really produce, it didn't light any fires, but still people bought it. I think it was about $100 a pay-per-view over in the US.
Fight in history.
Yeah, insane. And I think there's elements of that will come across in a Brook Khan fight. I think there can be a great build-up. I think, Eddie Hearn, if he can get Brook and Khan, like you say, on a live stream, the needle's there. But I think what we will actually get in the ring may be fairly disappointing, but we'll see.
All right. Michael N. The fans feel used by Khan. Now, look. Okay, this is another side that we've got to tackle, right? Because the fans that say they ain't going to watch the fight feel like Michael N. and say, hold on, we've waited for this fight for years, and you've said it's going to happen if you do this, if you do that, if you agree to this, you agree to that. There might actually be fans that just say, look, we're going to protest. We're going to go on strike for this fight. We were waiting for this fight for a long time, and you didn't give it to us.
No, I completely get that. But the problem with that is the fans that don't watch the fight don't matter. It's the fans that do watch the fight that do matter. And there'll be enough of them. There'll be enough people that do watch it, that do pay for it, that make the people who don't watch it kind of irrelevant. But I think I might be in that category that feels used by Khan, because I was hugely excited by Amir Khan's career when he turned pro. He at the boxing gym that still the boxing gym I'm involved in, but when I first walked into a boxing gym to train back in 2000 and something, there was a picture of a 15-year-old Amir Khan on the wall with the Olympic team, it was the England squad, and then him with the Olympic team. And Amir Khan was like, was a hero back then, and we were all looking forward to seeing his professional career progress. So I think I might be one of those fans that actually feels a little bit bitter about some of the career decisions that Khan's made. But saying that, the Khan fan base is fiercely loyal. I don't think he's gonna lose or I don't think he's lost that many fans, and there's still a hell of a fan base there that will tune in.
He's got a fan base, definitely. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Okay, so just a couple more questions. Okay, True B. Khan is still fast. do you guys think Kell would be able to see those punches with the damaged eyes?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, if Kell Brook's eyes were that damaged, he wouldn't get a boxing license.
Mm.
Surely he wouldn't get a boxing license. So I don't think there's an issue with his eyesight from that point of view. Is it possible that those eyes are more fragile now that they've had that damage? And could Amir Khan, with fast, accurate punches, exploit that and cause problems and flare those injuries, those issues up? I think that would be a Khan tactic. He'd be silly to not target the eyes to try and get the early stoppage.
Mm. And you remember in the Porter fight, Kell Brook managed to negate the threat of Sean Porter, and Sean Porter was coming forward relentlessly, throwing loads of punches and bunches, and Kell Brook just tucked up and timed. He timed, Sean Porter. So he'd probably do the same thing again. Kell Brook's good at that. He's got good timing, doesn't waste many punches, and he's got a good, solid right hand. And if that connects,
yeah,
who knows what could happen?
I mean, it's going to be slightly different because the way that Sean Porter comes in, it's a close range, toe-to-toe fight like that. I would expect Amir Khan to be a much longer. I think it's more about straight shots. Amir Khan will be looking to step into range, get off a volley of shots, step back out of range. So Kell Brook, it's timing that's where the issue's going to be. I think Khan, from that point of view, because Khan having fast feet and not coming forward like a bull in the way that Sean Porter does, it's a different type of counter punching. It's going to involve different tactics. But as you say, Kell Brook can defend. Kell Brook, does have good defensive skills and good counter punching skills. It's just a case of, are they diminished? And does he still have that timing to be able to counter at longer range and negate Khan's fast feet?
All right, Javier Miller, once again, IQ Boxing Academy. I was surprised how quickly Terence knocked out Brook. As historically, Brook's chin was reliable. He took heavy punches from Porter, Spence, and GGG. So to add to your point, right, that was quite surprising, all right, that Terence Crawford stopped Kell Brook like that. I've never seen that happen to Kell Brook. It's never happened. It was a surprise, right? But two factors, right? Crawford is a hell of a fighter. Now, I keep saying to people, they ask me, who's the best fighter that you've seen technically live? I always say Terence Crawford. I believe David Caldwell says the same thing as well. Crawford, just the way everything comes together that I saw when he fought Amir Khan in New York was breathtaking, mate. I literally my mouth was open like, wow, this guy's incredible, right? So we can kind of allow Kell Brook on that side of things, right? Number two, do you remember in that fight against Crawford switched hit, right, and turned southpaw against Kell Brook, which Amir Khan ain't going to do that, all right? So that factor is not there in the first place. So there's 2 points for you, to chew on there, Benji.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Crawford win over Kell Brook, it's a combination of two factors. You've got Kell Brook that's not in his prime anymore. He's not at his peak. Unfortunately, I think a prime peak Kell Brook could well be the Kell Brook that got into the ring with Golovkin. And I think that Kell Brook on that night, had he been in the ring with, someone at 147, I think things would have been a hell of a lot different. So I think you've got the combined factor of a slightly diminished Kell Brook being in with a pound for pound fighter that's kind of maybe at a peak right now, Crawford. So you get those things together. And again, it's styles, isn't it? And against, I would say I wouldn't expect Khan to do to Brook what Terence Crawford did to him, because I think that Crawford carries more power, and I just, I think he's better. Again, Amir Khan slightly diminished himself. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think that, of course, I think that Amir Khan is a much, do I say, easier fight, less difficult fight for Kell Brook than Terence Crawford was. But again, it really comes down to just who's got what left. I think we've got a much better idea of what Brook has left now than what Khan does. I mean, I was just having a look at Amir Khan's record at the start of this live stream. Amir Khan has not been in the ring for a long time. Hell of a long time. It was Saudi Arabia last time he was in the ring.
Yeah.
And it wasn't against a very good opponent, really. So I think it's much harder to judge how much Amir Khan has left than Terence Crawford, than Kell Brook. And also ring rust. I mean, is Amir Khan going to get straight into the ring with Kell Brook after a long layoff? Is ring rust going to be any kind of factor there? I mean, the worst thing now would be is if Amir Khan says, right, I'm going to do the Kell Brook fight, but I need a tune-up fight first. I think the boxing
that would kill any interest, right?
The face palm, the noise from the face palm would echo around the whole world.
Right. Okay. So last couple of questions before we out. All right. Nicholas John, welcome, mate. Right, Nicholas. Right. Kell Brook doesn't move his head and he doesn't like getting hit. Easy win for Khan.
Well, who does like getting hit?
Yeah. You say the same thing. No one likes getting hit. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, I guess chin comes into play there, and as Zav said, historically Kell Brook has had a pretty decent chin. Kell Brook doesn't move his head. Amir Khan's head movement isn't that great, really. But I think a Khan tactic, like I said before, is going to be to keep it long, use your feet to get in and out of range. If you can pepper him with enough shots and flare up the eye problems, maybe get the stoppage.
It's the game plan, isn't it?
Yeah, and if that doesn't happen, well, if you're peppering him with shots, getting in and out of range, you can take it on a 12-round decision.
And you talked about head movement, all right? So Gervonta Davis didn't have any head movement against Santa Cruz. He took some shots, but he just walked through Santa Cruz and you saw the uppercut. Many people's knockout of 2020. So Kell Brook might just say, look, you know what? All right, I'm going to take the punches because I just want to absolutely lever my nemesis. Yeah, that could happen. So,
I mean, you know, it'd be absolutely hilarious, right? After me spending an hour and 28 minutes now talking about, oh well, when they actually get in the ring, it might not be, it might be a bit disappointing. It's not going to be the spectacle. Wouldn't it be hilarious now if these two got in the ring and produced Hagler Hearns? 3 rounds of just, and the thing is that, I mean, that would be amazing for a Hagler Hearns type fight between these two, and that was the end of their careers, and that they go out with a massive payday, boxing each other, having an all-out war. It would be a fantastic.
Then they'll for another fight.
Well, yeah, but that's it. We don't. Unfortunately, this is Benji fantasy land. We don't live in that world.
All right, guys. I think that's it. It's lunchtime, right? Thanks for the viewers for tuning in. And if this fight gets made, we'll definitely be doing this again. So keep your eyes peeled. Benji, you want to shout out your channel to the viewers?
Well, I mean, I've put some comments in the chat. It's me, Benjamin, on there. So, you can click on that and you'll get my channel. It's Benji's Boxing channel at the moment. It is going. I did a video the other day talking about things. It is going to be going for a rebranding over the next year. So the channel name is going to change soon. The artwork's going to change and everything like that. But yeah, if Benji's Boxing Channel, I'm at the Benji Life on Twitter. So if you can subscribe and follow me on Twitter and everything like that. And, you know, I've got to say it again, just a massive thank you to Pro Beez for inviting me onto his platform. And, you know, I love having these conversations. Pep Talk UK is the best channel in boxing, the fastest growing the way it's grown, and that, in my opinion, this has got to be your go-to channel for your interviews, your previews, your reviews, your boxing live chat, the lot. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Benji, I'm going to transfer that money to you in 10 minutes time, yeah, for the big up. Guys, thanks for joining us. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Pep Talk, Pro Beezy, Benji, we at ya. Thank you.